Hello again, Truck. Today I'm bringing you a build for the Mage class, which I've decided to call WARHAMMER of Veterans Equilibrium due to the WARHAMMER set we're using, the Veterans Chain Reaction that we're using, and the Master of Equilibrium passive skill, which makes this all be possible. You can see with the combination of those three things I've mentioned, we can non-stop spam Step Between Worlds, which is the teleport blink skill, which deals damage and leaves even more damage behind where you started the skill. So we're kind of teleporting around using some other skills to support this build, and you can see in details in the skill section regarding what skills to pick, what god skills to pick, and in the gear section regarding what other items would synergize well with this build. So if this is your kind of build, then that's the video for you. So the gear for this build is required to be the WARHAMMER set or the Bel-Khoradris set, so as it's called as well. You need that full set for the extra steps between worlds no cooldown bonus. In addition to that, it is improved in terms of damage. It deals magic damage instead of fire, and does not require skill points to equip. This is the skill Heroic Step Between Worlds. This is the main skill about this build. Of course, it also gives you some extra magical damage and extra damage to enemies around you by some thunderstorms that you would see appearing. Then, you need Soul Fire. Preferably, you could try and use a different offhand, but make sure the main hand is Phoenix Herald. We need Phoenix Herald because it gives us a permanent fiery aura around us, which damages and burns enemies. This fiery aura is needed for one of the skills, one of the passive skills, which you would see later on. And if you're using Soul Fire, that means you can stack up to 400% extra damage when you have 10 burning enemies around you. It's 40% burning damage per stack, and it can go up to 10 stacks, I believe. I haven't seen it more than 10 stacks. It's quite nice having this combo of weapon and offhand. Of course, do know that this is green gear, but you would start with red gear. So try to get something with good rolls. I will go over the rolls in a moment. For the amulet, I would suggest taking either god skills do more damage, if you want this to do more damage, but really not suggested to take it. Just take whatever you have as a good roll. Just one thing that you need to know is avoid Immaculate Amulet until it's fixed. Currently, you will get healed when a god skill is used for 20% health, but the enemies would also get healed for 20% HP. So something I would recommend would be maybe using this if you want to be using your potion more often but with less healing. Or maybe this might be nice if you want to reduce the cooldowns of Etheric Vortex, Etheric Storm and Blinding Light even further. Another thing would be, which one was it? The one that gives you some extra... I don't think I have it, but just put whatever you think is best. This is not a bad choice though. If you're using this often, just take this, or take the one with the potion or the one with the cooldowns, whichever you think is best. For the rings here, I must note that you need to do invasion in order to get Ring of Resonance. So this is where you get the rings from the invasion node. Old Ring of Shadow is from here, Old Ring of Dexterity is here, and Old Ring of Resonance is here. We're using Old Ring of Resonance because it has a very good synergy with our main damage skill with Step Between Worlds. Each time we cast Step Between Worlds, this will resonate and create an explosion that stuns all enemies within a certain radius. You can look for the white effects around me when I use this skill. Another good ring to go together with Ring of Resonance would be Ring of Hotek. Alternatively, you can use a Ring of Shadows for extra dodging, just to have a bit more survivability. It might go very well with this build. So Ring of Hotek or Ring of Shadows is what I would recommend. If you want bonus damage, maybe you can try using Ring of Kane's Fury. If you want more cooldown reduction, go for Ring of Radiance, but I don't think this build really needs much more cooldown reduction. This is also nice for some extra damage reduction upon crit, but I would strongly recommend putting a Ring of Hotek or Ring of Dexterity. A Ring of Shadow, not Dexterity, my bad. Ring of Dexterity is... there's something I don't know. Whether Ring of Dexterity, which boosts skills that generate energy for 100%, whether it would boost Step Between Worlds Heroic, since we're using this skill. Consuming energy has a chance to reduce any current cooldowns. Using a spell with a cooldown has a chance to regenerate energy. This is considered spell with cooldown even though it doesn't have a cooldown. So this means if this is considered a skill that generates energy, then Ring of Dexterity would give you extra 100%. You might try and experiment with this, see if it works. But for now, just keep in mind Ring of Hotek for extra HP regained and Ring of Shadow for extra dodging. Both of them are good choices. Let me quickly tell you something about other weapon options. Rift Eater. If you don't want to go for a Phoenix Herald Soul Fire combo, then you could go for a Phoenix Herald and Rift Eater combo. A critical hit with a magic spell has a chance to create a magical orb that emits a persistent laser for a few seconds. It basically creates something like this orb, but a blue one, in a random direction pointing at some enemy or something. It's not a bad one. It also benefits from the magic damage bonus from the set and from passives that increase magic damage or anything that increases any other damage. The other alternative option would be Blade of Instability, which creates a magic wave once you use a fire spell, and when you use a fire spell, and when you use a magic spell, it creates a fire spell. So it creates different waves depending on what you're using from the opposite element. It's more like a dragon tamer weapon, but if you have a good rolled one, use it. For the rolls on the Phoenix Herald, try to get crit chance. You cannot get crit chance on Soul Fire, but you do need crit chance on the Phoenix Herald. Even if you don't get any armor piercing, try to get crit chance and damage, preferably. Getting crit damage is not that good, but crit chance and fat damage is a must-have from the Phoenix Herald. If you get armor piercing, even better. For the Soul Fire, try to get something like good armor piercing, good fat damage, even if it costs you some crit damage like 5, 6, 7, 8, even 10% crit damage lost. Go for like preferably 1000 more damage, or 1-2 more armor piercing isn't a bad choice, but try to get something with as high flat damage as you can, even if you lose some crit damage. For the gauntlets, this is a great item to give you some extra DPS. Try to get as high flat damage as you can, even if it sacrifices some crit damage here. But try to get something with crit damage and damage, even if it doesn't have HP. If you need the survivability, then use something with HP, maybe sacrifice some crit damage, but keep the flat damage, because it's an amazing amount that you can get even from a red gauntlet. You can get around, I think, 3000 something. Yeah, you can see red gauntlet can give you 3.6 thousand damage. So while you have red gear, you can do Chaos 1, 2, 3. Just try to see something that you can speedrun. As you start getting green pieces, you can move on to Chaos 4 or 5. This seems to be it for the gear. Pretty straightforward. Now on to the skills section. The skills for the build are very specific, and in order to get this build to work the way it works for me, you need 3 nice skills. You can go with just two of them, but you need three nice skills, and two of them are from the invasion mode. First of all, you need Master of Equilibrium. This means once we use this skill to consume 31 energy or whatever energy cost you've got, it will reduce any current cooldowns of any skills, like there's a chance to do that, but the more important part is using a spell with a cooldown has a chance to regenerate energy, which means we're using this and we're regenerating energy. Then, the other important skill is Veteran's Chain Reaction. Using a skill with cooldown cancels the energy cost of the next spell used. So first of all, we're regaining energy each time we use it. Second, once we use it once, the next one would be without a cooldown. That means we can endlessly spam this skill. I stumbled upon this as I was experimenting last night, and this is a great combo. Third important passive skill is Duelist Chain Reaction. It's also part of this build, very important part, because this gives us not 4 but 200 crit damage. 4 times 50. So you just do 1, 2, 3, 4, you get 4 stacks, and there you have it, extra 200 damage, crit damage. So from 762.1 to 962.1. 3 must-have skills. I would strongly suggest getting the crit chance passive, and I would strongly suggest from your items to get crit chance from amulet and rings and weapon, and on the blessings use crit damage. Now, another good thing is Quaysh Shield. You can kind of get rid of it and use something else if you want, but this kind of gives us a little bit of healing while using this skill. I'm not sure if it works when the skill doesn't consume energy, but you can kind of consume energy with other skills if you want to. The good thing is it gives you some extra damage. So you get 20% extra damage after consuming energy. You can try and experiment maybe replacing it with something different, such as this thing. Dealing magical damage increases fire spell damage and reduces their energy cost, and vice versa. So you're constantly dealing fire damage from the aura and you're constantly dealing magic damage. So this would be a good choice if Quaysh Shield is something you don't want. Another option to replace Quaysh Shield would be this. Regardless of whether you pick the 4 points or the 8 points, it will give you 20% magical damage. You could probably just pick the one with 4 points, but here it's good to pick the one with 8 points if you want that extra energy reduction, or you can again go for the 4 points one. Not sure anything else would be really good, because your main damage is not fire, so this wouldn't be that good to use. Because your main damage comes from Step Between Worlds. This is also gonna be doing fire, so maybe you can put this and get some extra fire damage in the build. Before you get those skills, Duelist Chain Reaction and Veteran's Chain Reaction, the build would probably require you putting something like maybe you can remove Quaysh Shield, and you can put this skill and this skill, both of them together, or this skill and this skill together. It would be a good combo and it won't be a bad choice. Alternatively, you can just use the HP node and the Master Blacksmith's node, and then from the 6 skill points you get here, you can upgrade one of the other skills. I don't think Quaysh Shield is worth it at the last point, unless you want that damage reduction, but then you would lose the healing. But then you could kind of upgrade Master of Equilibrium, and it would still kind of break the build, so try to keep Master of Equilibrium to the superior version. So this must be superior and this is preferably superior. This must be mastered. If you want that extra damage, this has to stay mastered. So for those 6 skill points, as I said, I suggest either putting some damage, some HP while you're farming, put Lucky Charm. I usually remove my crit chance while farming. And you can also get this skill, it's not a bad choice, whatever you think fits. I wouldn't suggest using this because you are not staying static. So good skills worth equipping are Arcane Binding or Quaysh Mastery. I wouldn't suggest Concentration because we are not staying static. Something that's also worth mentioning is Action Mastery, and that's kind of it. Now for the active skills, starting off here for the energy generation, I would suggest getting Phantom Blade until you grab this and this skill as a combination. Then it doesn't matter, we don't need energy generator, you can replace it for something else, you can replace it for a damage dealing skill. Maybe you can put the Tornado there, or you can put Etheric Orb once it gets fixed. Whatever you put there, it's up to you. Something that I suggest taking here is Etheric Vortex Superior. This means anyone that stays under this dome, which you can move around with spacebar, and it will follow your cursor. Anyone who stays in this dome takes 25% extra damage. Etheric Storm Mastered. This makes sure that you deal more damage. So once you use the skill, you can also move it around with spacebar. You can only move one skill at a time with spacebar, so you can't move those two at the same time together. While you move this, you get extra 20% damage. While you're playing in a party, other players are also granted the bonus if the bolt hits them. It also burns enemies and sets the ground alight, so it's kinda nice to set enemies on fire if you're not using the Phoenix Herald. Etheric Ray I decided to put as master because I just had some spare skill points. You can kind of do this and you can rotate it with spacebar. You can place another one and rotate it. The last one you've placed can be rotated, so you can kind of put around 3. Maybe you can put them 3 in the same place, or you can just place them like this. Whatever you want, you can rotate it and adjust to your preference. The good thing is while you're doing a boss, you can do a Etheric Dome, you can do the Storm, and you can do 3 of those, and then you can just start damaging enemies. You can also start off with the Blinding Light. And moving on, let's talk about Blinding Light a bit. It deals magical damage, it repels and slows enemies, and it creates an area on the ground which regenerates health and energy at mastered. So you're standing in there and regenerating some HP if you need to. You can use it for some healing while you like kind of run out of the boss's side, you heal, wait like move around so they don't cast an AoE underneath your feet, and then back to damaging the boss. And the main skill, the build maker, is a step between worlds heroic. You teleport, you leave a magical sign behind. You can see here I'm teleporting, and then this magical sign is left behind. This magical sign damages the enemies, and once you appear, it creates a magical explosion. So there's like this reddish, purplish, or I don't know, some type of dust particles. This is the explosion. And the white explosion is from Ring of Resonance. So this kind of seems to be it for the skills. Main things that make the build are Master of Equilibrium, Veteran's Chain Reaction, and Duelist Chain Reaction. As I said, you need Invasion for those skills, and this is where you get them: Duelist Chain Reaction and Veteran's Chain Reaction. You need Chaos 5 monsters, so if you can't handle Chaos 5, I'd suggest kind of getting those nodes here. Those nodes would give you some bonuses, they will debuff the enemies, and they will give you some extra resistances as well. So keep that in mind. Start off with those nodes maybe, then move on to those nodes, and then move on to taking those nodes. If you're having difficulties, if you kind of can't handle anything past this node. Maybe try and farm some Chaos 3 invasions for green items. Once you have green items, then it shouldn't be a problem to take those specific nodes. I would strongly suggest doing speedruns. If you can handle Chaos 3 fast, do Chaos 2. but make sure it's a Grand Relic run. Now let me quickly move on to showing you some of the god skills. This is the setup. I believe this is the most optimal setup for this build. The only thing you can change is this. This is extra 2 HP, which I probably no longer need. Before I had green gear, I put this because I needed some extra HP for the last point. You can probably get some extra 2% damage, or I'm not sure what else could be taken. Maybe some extra... Yeah, I think extra damage would be fine. 2% damage instead of 2% HP might be better. But make sure to stop here for the crit damage. Don't go all the way there, you don't need the energy. Don't go here, that extra 20% crit damage is not worth sacrificing 10% of your HP. Not for 20%, maybe if it was 60% it might be. You do need this though, you really do need this skill. You do need this, but if you decide not to take it, you can have some extra points and maybe you can either go 1-2 without this note, or you can go 1-2, or you can go 1-2, or 1-2, or even maybe all the way here, but you don't need that energy, so not worth it. This is needed, extra 10 HP for cost reduction. We are not kind of using energy, so we don't care much about this. And this kind of is it. You can see I've got 180% crit damage from this place here, and from stacking the Veteran's Chain Reaction another 200% crit damage, and then 400% crit damage from the item blessings. 10 items, 40 crit damage each, so that's 400, 580, 680, 780 crit damage just from the god skills, from the gear, and from this skill. And if you add whatever the weapon is giving you and stuff like that, you would have a lot of crit damage. Like me, 962 crit damage. This can probably go all the way to 980. I don't think I can get it to 1000 unless something else gets introduced that gives me some more crit damage. But even then it's nice. Now, for the end of this video, I'll leave you with a boss fight footage. So for the gameplay, as you can see, we're kind of porting all the time, and when I start a boss fight I like to go into the boss, pop my etheric dome, pop the etheric storm, get that extra damage going, eventually every now and then pop those laser beams. And on bosses like this one that have this white AoE in circle, the poison one has one with poison, this one has a blue one, the fire one has one. Kind of try to pay attention when they start casting such skills, stay out of their sight for a while, then jump back in, spam some teleports. Remember, when you're teleporting, you're leaving a mark behind, and when you're next to the boss, you're kind of leaving that mark right under the boss's feet. And you're also damaging with Ring of Resonance and with the default damage after leaving your place and reappearing. So this is kind of it. Pretty simple and pretty nice. And remember to use Binding White when needed. So this is it for that build. If you like the video, you can let me know by hitting that button. And feel free to subscribe for more content such as build videos, streams, and even guides sometimes. You can find links to my Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Mixer pages in the description below, as well as the following sequence. And thank you for watching, and remember to keep it cool.